Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kham Karoti Vacham Padam Nangyate Girim Yatkripatama Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam Shri Guru Paramananda Premananda Palaprada Vajananda Pradhananda Sevayam Maniyojaya Namo Vishpadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shri Mati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pashachari Satarane. So we had started the first chapter of the fifth canto, which was the instructions to Prabhat by Lord Brahma. And the chapter began with the question from Vidur. I'm sorry, by question by Parishad Maharaj to Sukdev Goswami. Two-part question in the connection of Priyavrata, that how could somebody who was renounced take to household life, which is materialistic, and how could one who is materialistic become renounced? So Priyavrata, both these things happen. And in answering that question, Sukdev Goswami, he relates the conversation between Brahma and Priyavrata, because that it's more of instructions by Brahma to Priyavrata, but built in that is also the explanation to this. So before Sukdev Goswami begins to talk about this conversation, he he glorifies bhakti. So in essence, he is presenting the the crux of the matter upfront. That through devotional service, one is always protected, and that essentially is how Priyavrata remains protected in all situations, whether he is a renunciant or whether he is in household life. So he gives that crux up front, and then he starts relating the conversation between Brahma and Priyavrata. So just to set the context, the reason this conversation is happening is because Manu finds that there is no suitable ruler for the planets. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Padma Prabhupada give a little bit of back history that when Maharaj Utanpad took over the rulership, he ruled for a long time. And then after that, Dhruv Maharaj ruled for a long time. After that, the descendants of Dhruv Maharaj ruled for a long time, all the way till we came to the Prachetas, Prithu Maharaj and then Prachetas, which brings us somewhat to the middle of the Manvantara. But when the Prachetas give up the kingdom in due time, their son Daksha is not ready to take up the rulership, because he's still undergoing purifications for the offenses that he has done, and he does that for a long time. So there is essentially no suitable ruler, and at that time, Manu, understanding the seriousness of the situation, approaches his elder son Priyavrata, and Priyavrata had begun his life in the renounced order. So he was by nature renounced, and based on the instruction he received from Narad Muni, he was executing devotional service. But Manu wants to convince Priyavrata, and the conversation is not related here, but the understanding is that Priyavrata was resisting the conversation, the instructions of his father, considering the path of devotion to be superior. And at that time, Brahma comes. So we are beginning from the 8th verse, where Brahma is now entering. So all this conversation is happening on the top of the Gandhamadan hill, and Brahma is now descending to that hill. Okay, so we'll read the Sanskrit. This is again in prose, and who would read? Prem Kishore Prabhu, can you do the translation?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu.
Okay, this is 518. स तत्र तत्र गगन तल्लुदुपतिर्व विमानविल्भिरनुपथम् अमर परिवृधेर् अभिपुयुज्यमान पति च वरुस्तसिद्धगन्धर्व साध्यचरण मुनिगणैर् उपगीयमानो गन्धमादन् द्रोणेर्नवभाषयन् उपसशर्प.
As Lord Brahma descended on his carrier, the great swan, all the residents of the planets named Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Sadhyaloka, and Charanaloka, as well as great sages and demigods flying in their different airplanes, assembled within the canopy of the sky to receive Lord Brahma and worship him. As he received respect and adoration from the residents of the various planets, Lord Brahma appeared just like the full moon surrounded by illuminating stars. Lord Brahma's great swan then arrived at the border of the Gandhamadana hill and approached Prince Priyavrata, who was sitting there.
So the appearance of Brahma is a spectacular event because he is such an exalted personality. And this verse describes his spectacular descent to the Gandhamadan hill. In the previous verse, which we had done last week, it was indicated that Brahma descended from Swabhavanath. Prabhupada says Swabhavanath means that his own abode. And then he expands on the fact that every demigod has his own abode. And some of them actually have more than one abodes. Like Brahma is an example that he lives in Satyaloka. He also lives at the top of Mount Meru. And exalted personalities like the Lokpalas, they have multiple abodes. The point Prabhupada makes is that there are millions of devas and there are millions of stars and planets that are their respective abode. So he quotes Bhagavad Gita, Yanti Deva Vrita Devan, that those who worship demigods go to their different planetary system. So pointing to the fact that the devas, they have their own respective planet or planetary system, and the worshippers of the devas go to those planetary systems which are within the material world. And the highest amongst them is Satyaloka, also known as Brahmaloka. So Prabhupada says that it appears from this description that there is regular interplanetary travel between the planets of the demigods. Another significant point here is that there is a planet covered mostly by great mountains, one of which is Gandhamadan Hill. Three great personalities, Priyavrata, Narad, and Swambhavu Manu, were sitting on this hill. And later on, we'll see that Brahma and Lord Shiva also are over here, even though it's not mentioned explicitly. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad makes the point that even Lord Shiva was present to witness the conversation. And Prabhupada then talks a little bit about uh, the residents in different planets. That those who are in Siddhalokas, they have expert mystic powers. They are known as Upadevas. So they are above humans, but they're below demigods. The residents of Gandharva Loka, Siddhaloka. So like they say, there is Om Bhur Bhava Swaha. So Swaha represents to Swa represents to Swarga, and Bhur refers to the earthly planet. Is the area in between where personalities that are higher than the humans but lower than the devas, like the Siddhas, Charans, Gandharvas, Kimapurushas, uh, they reside. And later on in the fifth canto, when there is a description of the vertical structure of the universe, there is some description also given of the the characteristics of these residents. But Prabhupada comments on this because he often comments on the fact that interplanetary travel by mechanical means is not really possible. So he had written early on. He had written a book, "Easy Journey to Other Planets," and he commented on the fact that one can travel um, based on uh, one's pious activities. So after death, the person can travel to wherever they desire if they have the necessary piety. And one can also acquire siddhis and travel to planets. But mechanical traveling has its own limits. And he gives the example of Ravan, who was trying to build a golden staircase to the heavens. So he was trying to create a mechanical form of travel, of entry into the upper planets, and he was defeated in that also. Okay, verse 9. तत्र वा एनं देवर्षिर्हंसयानेन पित्रं भगवन्तं हिरण्य गर्भं पुलब्मनः सहसेव वताया हनेन सह पिता पुत्राभयम् अविजान्तरिर् उपतस्थे.
Lord Brahma, the father of Narada Muni, is the supreme person within this universe. As soon as Narada saw the great swan, he could understand that Lord Brahma had arrived. Therefore, he immediately stood up. Along with Swayambhu Manu and his son Privrata, whom Narada was instructing. Then they folded their hands and began to worship Lord Brahma with great respect.
So Brahma is an expert in administration, and he comes at the right time because Narad is sitting over there, and Narad is famous for preaching renunciation through bhakti. So we know that later on he will instruct the 10,000 sons of Daksha and the 1,000 sons that he has later on. And Daksha had asked them to go and perform austerities in preparation for Grahastha life, but Narad instructs them to give it all up and go to bhakti. So Narad is an expert preacher and knows the right time to instruct. So Narad Muni is sitting over there instructing Priyavrata about the need to give up all material attachments, renounce everything, and take to spirituality. Manu is sitting over there and asking Priyavrata to give up his renunciation and take to the path of ruling the kingdom. Narad is winning the argument because Priyavrata is more inclined towards what Narad is saying. So at an appropriate time, Lord Brahma appears. So one of the points to note over here is that when Narad Muni sees Brahma, or even before seeing Brahma, he sees the swan. So he understands that his father Brahma is coming. So he immediately stands up and along with Manu and Priyavrata, he offers prayers and respects to Brahma. So there is a lot of collegiality amongst devotees. That even though they may not agree to a particular point, but it never impinges on their mutual love and respect. So it's not that Narmani looked at Brahma and became resentful that, oh my God, this person is now going to come and is going to reverse all the work that I have been doing and be resentful towards Brahma. Neither is Manu resentful to Narad. That sometimes people say that, oh, ISKCON is brainwashing people, and they become very resentful towards ISKCON. That by giving partial incomplete instructions or by different forms of control, they are brainwashing people, and they develop a lot of resentfulness. But actually, it is a symptom of their own contamination. That they look at things in a very limited perspective. They draw prejudiced conclusions, and then they act upon it. That there is different levels of uh, of disagreements between Narad and Manu, and between Narad and Brahma, and Priyavrata is kind of being tossed on the horns of dilemma. But it does not impinge on the enormous amount of love and respect that is there. Even at the end, when Brahma Priyavrata accepts the instructions of Brahma, Narad is still happy. He gives his obeisances to Brahma, and he's also satisfied. So he does not go sulking that I've been defeated and Brahma used his position to basically outmaneuver me, because they're all united in their singularity of purpose to serve the Lord and serve the devotee. So whatever happens here is for the best of Priyavrata and the best way that he can serve Lord. So there may be difference in parts, but there is always singularity in purpose. And as long as that is there, then there will not be any place for resentment. Disagreements will be there. In fact, in the scriptures, it is also said that one should have debates. One should present contrary views. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu, not Mahaprabhu, but in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is clearly said that one should look at all possible explanations to a tattva. One should debate on them, and through that one will develop strength and conviction. And more than that, one will develop tolerance. So we see that being actually played out in this particular pastime. Okay, moving on to verse 10. Bhagavan api bharat tad upane tatnaha tukta vakena tiram udit guna ganavatar sujyaha priyavartam adi purushas tam sadya asavalok iti uvacha.
My dear King Parikshit, because Lord Brahma had finally descended from Satyaloka to Bhuloka, Narada Muni, Prince Priyavrata, and Swayambhu Manu came forward to offer him objects of worship and to praise him in highly qualified language. According to Vedic etiquette, highly qualified language according to Vedic etiquette. At that time, Lord Brahma, the original person of this universe, felt compassion for Priyavrata and looking upon him with a smiling face, spoke to him as follows.
So Brahma is greeted with Shukta Vakena. So Shukta Vakena means Vakyana means statements, but Shukta Vakyana means by Vedic hymns. So there are many Vedic hymns that are composed to glorify Brahma. And Manu and Priyavarta and Narad, they recite these hymns to greet and respect Brahma. The Prabhupada says that there is the following prayer to Brahma: Hiranyagarbha Samavartagre Bhutasya Jata Patir Ekasid. So in this way, Brahma is welcomed with proper etiquette, and Brahma responds by being pleased uh, with it. So it said hasa, that smiling. Smiling means that even though the situation might be contentious, but the interactions will never be contentious. So Brahma is smiling. Now, sadaya. So daya means compassion. Sadaya means being full of compassion. So one can understand the smiling of Brahma, that he is meeting advanced devotees, he's meeting his own devotees. How does one understand the compassion in Brahma? So Srila Prabhupada explains that Brahma was aware of the dilemma in the mind of Parishad Maharaj. So he has this difficult choice to make, that either he pursues the path of bhakti and disobeys uh, uh, his guru, Narad Muni, or he disobeys his superiors like Manu and Brahma, or he gives up the instructions of his guru Narad and follows the instructions of Brahma and Manu. Right? Not a good place to be in for one who is conscientious. So, out of compassion, Brahma is looking at Priyavrata. Prabhupada says that Brahma descended from Satyalok to see Priyavrata, and this indicates that the matter was very serious. Right? In the company, if there is some problem and if the CEO is coming, that means it's a serious problem. Otherwise, some middle-level management person or senior management person can fix it. But when the CEO himself is coming, then you know that there is a serious issue. So everyone is aware of the gravity of the situation. So Prabhupada says that Lord Brahma knew that Narad's instructions were very impressive. Therefore, unless Brahma personally went to Gandhamadhan Hill to request Priyavrata, Brahma knew that Priyavrata would not accept his father's order. So this is the seriousness of the situation. Ultimately, even this is not actually the seriousness of the situation. The real seriousness of the situation is that the universe would be, or at least the Bhumandal would be left without an emperor. And as we saw in the time of King Vena, that even though King Vena was a really bad personality, a bad king, but when he came, things changed. Before King Vena, there was no king and everything was in a disarray. And when King Vena came, then all the miscreants ran away, law and order was there. So the importance of having a ruler, especially a good ruler, that was the real gravity of the situation. And Priyavrata is the solution to that problem. So Prabhupada said, Brahma first looked upon Priyavrata with compassion. His smile and compassionate feature also indicated that although Brahma would request Priyavrata to accept household life, Priyavrata would not be out of touch with devotional service. So this is Srila Prabhupada revealing the conclusion. And Prabhupada does that often in Bhagavad Gita and in Bhagavatam. He writes the purport in a way that even if somebody just reads that purport, they get a full A to Z grasp of what's going on. So the compassion of Brahma The compassion of Brahma is, Prem Kishore Prabhu, you may want to mute yourself. There's disturbance coming from your end.
Sorry.
So the compassion of Brahma is that one is that it is placing Priyavarta in this difficult situation to make a choice. The compassion is also in a form assurance that don't worry, things will work out, and that's what we'll see towards the end of the prayers. Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad comments that the smile of Brahma at his grandson. So Priyavarta is the grandson, right? Manu is the son and Priyavarta is the grandson. So he says the smile of Brahma at his grandson was one of mischievous affection. So essentially, Chakravarti Pad says that it's a battle of wills between the grandfather and the grandson. So sometimes the grandson will come and tell the grandfather, "Give me this," and the grandfather will say, "No." Say, "No, give it to me," and he'll say, "No, I won't give it to you." Right? And it's very amusing to see that interaction between a much older person and a younger person, and they're both bound by love. There's not a love there, but there is what Vishwanath Chakravarti says, there is this mischievous affection. So he says that Brahma is saying that, my dear grandson, you are refusing the kingdom out of your stubbornness. Out of my stubbornness, I will make you rule the kingdom. Let us see who is more stubborn. Let us see whose stubbornness will prevail. So there is a little bit of the rasa that is going on. Prabhupada writes that that Priyavrata was the grandson of Brahma, and as joking competitions sometimes take place between grandson and grandfather, in this case also Priyavrata was determined to remain in meditation, whereas Brahma was determined that he rule the universe. So Brahma's affectionate glance and smile meant that, my dear Priyavrata, you have decided not to accept household life, but I have decided to convince that you must accept it. And then Prabhupada says, actually Brahma had come to praise Priyavrata for his high standard of renunciation, austerity, penance, and devotion, so that he would not be deviated from devotional service, even though he would accept household life. So again, this is Srila Prabhupada giving us a glimpse into the conclusion of the instructions. That when Brahma is asking Priyavrata to take to household life, it is also an implicit acknowledgement of the greatness of Priyavrata. It's like saying that you send a soldier into battle, and if the battle conditions are difficult, then you will send your best soldier over there. So that is what is happening in this case. That Brahma is asking Priyavrata to enter into Grihastha life because he's confident that Priyavrata will not let it affect his devotion. So in effect, this is a glorification of Priyavrata also. Okay, verse 11. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Nibhota Te Damritam Pravime Ma Shutam Devam Arhasiya Pramayam Vayam Bhavasketa Tesha Mahashi Vaham Sarve Vivashayasya Dishtam.
Lord Brahma, the Supreme Person within this universe, said, my dear Priyavrata, kindly hear attentively what I shall say to you. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord who is beyond our experimental measurements. All of us, including Lord Shiva, your father, and the great sage Maharshi Narada, must carry out the order of the Supreme. We cannot deviate from his order.
So the essence of this verse is that there are situations in which one needs to perform activities that is not in accordance to their desires. So one may want to do something, like one may want to to for practicing devotee, one may want to eat indiscriminately, but then the injunction is only eat offered food. Right? So then the person may see something that is appetizing or appealing, and then the person says, "Oh, I wish I could eat it, but I can't because it's not prasada." Or the person may want to get up late, but then the injunction is that try and get up early and take care of your chanting. So the desire may be something else, but the person is induced to act in a different way because of the adherence to instructions. So Lord Brahma, of course, is the supremely intelligent being. So he's establishing this argument in a very systematic way. Right? So the first point that he's making is, so his purpose is that he has to convince Priyavrata Maharaj to renounce his renunciation and take to ruling the kingdom. But he does not approach that directly. He does not tell Priyavrata, like, I want you to do this, which may or may not have succeeded. So he is approaching it indirectly. Right? So rather than saying that this is the need of the hour, this is for the welfare of the creation, the first point that he's making is the need to follow authority. Might say all this, and Priyavrata might say, I don't follow your authority. So what's the point in this? It's like you speak to somebody from the Vedas, and then the person says, I don't accept the Vedas. So you might speak elaborately. The Bhagavatam says this, the Bhagavad Gita says this, Chaitanya Charitamrita says this. And the person says, yeah, but sorry, I don't follow it. So there is no point in having that conversation. Right? Before even having that conversation, one needs to ascertain that do you accept the authority of the scriptures? And if there is some at least theoretical acceptance, then the subsequent points need to be made. So Brahma is first establishing that it's important to follow authority. And he represents authority over here, but the point that he will make is that I'm not the ultimate authority. I'm also representing some other authority. So just like I'm following authority, you need to follow authority. He says, I am representing the desire of the Supreme Lord. And if you do not follow my instructions, you will be defying the will of the Lord. Right? So this foundation of the need to follow authority, the need to accept authority is there. In Bhakti Vinod Thakur's Darshamula Tattva, which is essentially based on instructions by Mahaprabhu to, I forget whether it's to Rupa Goswami or Sanatana Goswami, but of the 10 tattvas, the first tattva he says is Amanya. Amanya means having complete faith in the Vedas. If that faith is not there, then later on he talks about the other tattvas, Sambandha, Vidya, and Prayojan. He says, don't even read the other 9. Right? Only after you accept the first can you should you read the other 9. So the Brahma is saying that the most important thing is the need to follow authority. Now, say that, but I am practicing the path of bhakti, and bhakti is also the will of Lord. So Brahma anticipates this, and he says that the will of the Lord is aprayam. In this, he says that it is difficult to clearly discern the will of the Lord. Aprayam means that it is beyond empirical knowledge. So here Lord Shiva is also mentioned. So of the 12 Mahajans, 4 Mahajans are present there. So there is Brahma, there is Lord Shiva, there is Swambhavu Manu, and there is Narad Muni. Right? So these 12 Mahajans are the personalities who know how difficult it is to apply philosophical instructions to practical situations. How there can be so many mitigating factors that may need the instructions to be understood in a different way. That it is a sin to tell a lie, but under some situations, telling a lie is not sinful, right? It's said that if the lie is told to save the life of another person, it's not a sin. If the lie is told by a merchant for business purposes, it's not a sin. If the lie is told to win the hand of a woman, it's not a sin. So while there are rules, there are also mitigants to that. So Brahma is telling Priyavarta that you may be thinking in a simplistic way that the Lord wants to do bhakti, so I'm doing bhakti. But actually, the Lord's desire is apramayam. So when one cannot understand the Lord's knowledge, instruction by himself, he needs to submit to authority to understand that knowledge. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Brahma is telling Priyavarta, please do not hate me, thinking that my words fixed on active life are intolerable to you. I am also dependent on your Lord. I will speak about what he wants you to do. Consider this with your intelligence. So this is the second aspect to this to the emphasis on authority. So it's like sometimes in an organization, the middle level manager will go to his to whoever is working for him and say that you have to do this. And the person says, why do I have to do this? He says, my boss is asking me that you should do this. So don't be resentful towards me. This instruction has come from above my pay grade. I'm just the carrier of the message. So Chakravarti Pad says that is another point Brahma is making, that I'm simply carrying forth the instructions that I have received from the Lord. I am not the absolute authority. There is somebody who has a pay grade higher than mine, and I am following what he says. So then Priyavarta might say, okay, what is it? What is the truth? So Brahma says that I, Brahma, Shiva, your father Manu, and Narad, your guru, we all carry out the instructions of the Lord. All these four personalities are superior to Priyavarta. Right? So he's saying that we are superior to you. We carry out the instructions of the Lord. When the Lord instructs us, then we have to follow. So by his order, I am engaging you in the ruling of the kingdom. So then Priyavarta might find fault with the Lord. The Chakravarti Pad says that Brahma is indicating that do not find fault with the Lord. And this point will be expanded later on through analogies. So he's saying the Lord whom you worship with all your heart. So you're practicing this process of bhakti to please the Lord. And it's the same Lord who is now asking you to take to the process of grahastha life and rule the kingdom. So the Lord is inconceivable. The only thing that you can do is that you follow his instructions. No one knows his activities, but one who follows his instructions is that he will be delivered. Srila Prabhupada says the purport that of the 12 great authorities and devotional service, 4, Lord Brahma himself, his son Narad, Swambhu Manu, and Lord Shiva were present before Priyavrata. They were accompanied by many other authoritative sages. Later on, it says one cannot disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord, even if one is as powerful as Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Manu, or Narad. All these authorities are certainly very powerful, but they do not have the power to disobey the orders of the Lord. Since Brahma had come to Priyavrata in accordance with the orders of the Lord, he first wanted to dispel any suspicions that he might be acting as Priyavrata's enemy. Brahma was following the orders of the Lord, and therefore it would be worthwhile for Priyavrata to accept Brahma's order as the Lord desired. Okay, we'll do one more verse, and then after that we can pause for any discussion. Na tasya kasche tapasa vidyaya va na yoga virena manishyava naivartha dharme pratah svato va kritam vihantum tanu vibhuya. I think we lost Prem Kishore Prabhu.
I'm here.
Okay.
One cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities, an exalted Vedic education, or the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities. Nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. This is not possible for any living being from Brahma down to the ant.
So in the previous verse, Brahma, he establishes 2 points. Everybody needs to follow authority. And the second point is that he is representing the authority of the Lord. So Priyavrata might say that you're talking about general situations, but an exceptional situation. I represent, so Priyavrata was factually a very advanced personality. He had performed austerities and penances for millions of years, right from the beginning of the years, older to Utanpad, right from the beginning of his life to the middle of the Manvantara. So for hundreds and millions of years, he was performing devotional service, yoga, and he represented extraordinary knowledge and penances and mystic yoga. So preempting that, Brahma says that not by the strength of severe austerities, exalted Vedic education, the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess or intellectual activities, nor by the power of religion, material opulence, or by any other means can one defy the orders of the Lord. Right? So he's saying, doesn't matter that we are ordinary or extraordinary. Right? Everybody has to follow the will of the Lord. Now, there is an apparent, or not an apparent, there is there is a question that might come over here, that Brahma is saying that everybody is forced to follow the instructions of the Lord. But yet we see amongst ourselves, within ourselves, around us, that we are surrounded by people who are not following the instructions of the Lord. So Krishna says, take to bhakti, and there so many jivas not taking to bhakti. And Krishna says, okay, if you don't take to bhakti, follow the Vedas. And there are so many people not following the Vedas. So that is one reality. And the other reality is Brahma is saying that everybody, Indra to Indra Gopa, is following the instructions of the Lord. How do we reconcile these two?
Does it mean, Prabhu, whether we are directly following the orders of the Lord? If we are not following the orders of the Lord directly, then indirectly we are following his arrangement, his material arrangement. We cannot escape that. We have been impelled by the modes of material nature, and through all those illusory energy, we are forced to act in a certain way, if not directly under the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Is it something closer to?
Thank you, bro. Very good. No, not close. You're actually exactly on the money. That this is how we can reconcile the two perspectives. That when one voluntarily follows the will of the Lord, then the Lord reciprocates by rewarding the person, whether it is through the laws of karma, piety, or through bhakti. When the person does not follow the will of the Lord, then he is still controlled by the Lord. The person then suffers, becomes, takes on a particular body, gets a certain propensity, enjoys and suffers in a way. That is also the will of the Lord. So whether the person is apparently following the instructions of the Lord or not, in both the cases, they are bound by the will of the Lord. Like sometimes people ask this question that Krishna created this law of karma. He could have decided not to create the law of karma, right? He could have given everybody a free pass. That yeah, even if you're doing pious activities, doesn't matter. Yeah, and Krishna could have done that. But he 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 exercised his will to implement the law of karma in a certain way. And then when one does not follow the instructions of Krishna, one is bound by yet another will of the Lord. So one way or the other, everyone is bound by the will of the Lord. So Priyavrata might now say to Brahma that I accept what you're saying, but I've already been instructed by Narad to give up material life and pursue the path of bhakti. So what is to say that he is not the will of the Lord and only you are the will of the Lord. He is also an exalted soul. He is dear to the Lord. He is my guru. And he has really asked me to give up all this engagement, material engagement, and focus on. So Brahma, anticipating this, he uses the word Manishya. So Manishya by intelligence. So he says that rather than using your intelligence to find a way not to follow my instructions, use your intelligence to find out a way that you will follow my instructions and that of Narad as well. So Brahma is not trying to negate Narad's position, right? He's not saying that Narad came from me and he's my junior. Don't listen to him, and I'm the I'm I'm the origin of the Vedas in this material world. So he's not saying that, but he's saying, Manishya, that use your intelligence to do both. Both of us are bona fide representatives of the Lord. Both of us represent the will of the Lord. Now, can anybody tell me of an example where this devotee is placed in this situation, where received contrary instructions, and then the focus was on using the intelligence to resolve these contradictions?
Arjuna, Prabhu, with Ashwathama.
Very good, very good. So talk about multiple contradiction, right? First canto, 7th chapter. Arjun captures Ashwathama, gets him back. Arjun had initially promised to Draupadi, I will kill him, and then you will stand on his cut head, and after that only you will take the purificatory bath and do the rites of your son. Okay? Then when he caught Ashwathama back, then Draupadi's heart melted, and she said that I cannot make Tripi, his mother, suffer just like I am suffering, the lack of the loss of a son. So let him go. Bhima said, no, kill him. And Krishna says that you have to satisfy everyone. You have to be true to your vow. You have to satisfy Bhima. You have to satisfy Draupadi. And you have to satisfy me also. Now, Krishna does not exactly say what he wants, but understanding is he wants proper resolution to this. He said, you have to satisfy me also. Right? And then Manushya, then Arjun uses his intelligence and he cuts off the money on the forehead of Ashwathama. So he kills him, but does not kill him. Another time in the Mahabharata, similar situation, that when Karna came into the battlefield, he attacked Yudhishthira and hurt him really badly. So he was injured. And when Arjun heard about it, he quickly went to so Yudhishthira was hurt so badly that he had to withdraw from the battlefield to his camp. When Arjun heard about it, he quickly rushed to see what's going on with Yudhishthira. And when Arjun entered, then Yudhishthira looked at him and said, have you killed Karna? And Arjun said, no, I just came to see if you're okay. And Yudhishthira became very angry, which is unusual for Yudhishthira, but he became very angry, saying that, why have you come to me? Your duty is there on the battlefield. And you're not acting like a warrior. You just give up your Gandhi the way you're acting, not like a Kshatriya. Now, Arjuna had taken a vow that if anybody asked him to put down the Gandhi, he would kill him. So Arjun took out his sword and got ready to kill Yudhishthira. And at that time, Krishna intervened and said that you have to act in a way that you stay true to your vow, but you can't obviously kill Yudhishthira. He's your brother. He's like a father. You can't kill him. And then Arjun at that time, he moves forward towards Yudhishthira and he slaps him. And insulting a superior is as good as killing the superior, and immediately falls at his feet. Right. In Chaitanya Leela, there is this wonderful pastime of once Mahaprabhu. He was dancing and dancing and dancing, and he was so tired that then he goes and he falls asleep at the doorway. So his servant Govinda comes, and then Mahaprabhu tells Govinda, can you massage my feet? So the way Mahaprabhu was lying in the doorway, he was blocking the doorway, but his feet was inside. So Govinda says, if you can put your feet outside, I'll be more than happy to massage it. Mahaprabhu said, I'm too tired to even move. So you do whatever you want to do. So Govinda and then Mahaprabhu goes to sleep. So then Govinda takes a sheet, he puts it on the Lord's body, then he steps over the body. Then he goes inside the feet, and then he stays there. So later on, when Mahaprabhu wakes up, he says to Govinda, what are you doing inside? He said, I came in to massage your feet. So Mahaprabhu said, but I've been sleeping for a long time. You've been in this room for all the time. He said, yes. So you haven't taken any prasadam? He said, no. So then Mahaprabhu says, why didn't you just step over my body? You to come in. Why didn't you just step over my body and have prasadam? And then Govinda says that in order to serve you, I am willing to break etiquette. I am willing to put myself at risk, but not for my own sense gratification. So, not willing to step over you just to appease my hunger, but I'm willing to step over you for the sake of service. Similar pastime happens with the gopis, right? The famous pastime Krishna having a headache, and the gopis happily giving him the hair, the dust of the lotus feet. So, so devotees are expert at this, and even though practicing devotees are, we don't have these astronomical dilemmas of stepping over the Lord or giving the lotus dust of a lotus feet to the Lord. But we have dilemmas going on or on an ongoing basis. Two devotees approach us, Prabhu, can you do this service? Can you do this service? You have to say no to one person. Or you have some commitments that are non-material commitments. You want to balance it with your spiritual life. Or you have commitments to yourself that you want to balance it there. So intelligence is very important. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that that Manushya is of special significance, right? And later in the purport, he gives a glimpse into how Priyavrata can use his intelligence to reconcile both the orders of Narad Muni as well as Brahma. And he quotes the famous work, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yathartham Upayunanta Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate, which is basically use the material objects, so-called material objects, in the service of Krishna. So that way, as per Brahma's instructions, he is engaged in material life. As per Narad Muni's instructions, he is engaging it in the service of Krishna. So they are both reconciled. And Srila Prabhupada, generally when he speaks about this verse, he also takes a dig at the Mayavadi philosophers. He said the Mayavadi says, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. The material world is false and the only absolute truth is real. But for an intelligent devotee, there is nothing that is false. Everything can be used in the service of Krishna. Right? In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right after this was Anasaktasya Vishayan Phatu Pajanta is the verse that says that one who gives up material objects capriciously should not be considered to be a very mature devotee. Right? Just giving it up just because in the limited perspective they are material. Once somebody showed a picture to Prabhupada of a Swami or a sannyasi, and then somebody was presenting him with a plate that was full of money, and the Swami had his hand behind his back, and the headline was, he has nothing to do, he does not want to do anything with money. And then Prabhupada was looking at it and laughing and saying that if somebody gives me a plate full of money, I'll take it, and then I will use it in the service of Krishna, which is what he did. Okay, so let me pause here and see if we have any discussion.
Even Ambarish Maharaj, right? Breaking the fast, not breaking the fast is also one of that example. How he was able to satisfy the Ekadashi Vrat that he was taking. But
Exactly.
eventually Drosmuni got angry, but that's a different story.
Right.
So that was another example that came to mind.
Yeah, it's a good example.
And by doing the by by following Brahma's instruction, and also by in a Yukta Vairagya mode, he is actually living a renounced order of life while conducting Brahma's order. That's the understanding, right? That he's reconciling both in that way.
And that's how, yeah, so that's how like I said, Srila Prabhupada gives us sneak previews, but that is ultimately the conclusion of the instructions by Brahma. That Yukta Vairagya. There's a little bit more nuance to it. There is the assurance of protection also, but the ultimate instruction is this: that the engagement in the material world is not a problem. The attachment to that engagement is the problem. So, if you're detached, then at least at that danger of being caught in the material samsara is mitigated. If you do it as a service to Krishna, then there are different levels of your getting protection. One is you work with detachment, then at least you're not caught in that cycle. But if you do it in a mood of service, it is not different from devotional service. So whatever Priyavrata was doing before, he will continue to do during. Right. So this is ultimately what the assurance that Brahma gives towards the end of his prayers, end of his instructions.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. At the end of the day, if we have 24 hours in a day and you have to perform some activities, and like you said, we do it either by force or we want to do it with pleasure to please Krishna, we have to do it in a way. And at the end of our life, we will all pass away. And what is the result of this life? It depends on how we have acted in this life. And of course, it depends on our karma and our surrounding, who is advising us, but we have to lead a life in a way so that where we are happy in a way. Because when we do something positive inside ourselves, we have like some pleasure, even if devotees they don't like to have pleasure in a way, even we want to do it in a renounced way. But if we do something good, we feel there's a good feeling, as we say in noble word, compared doing something against our will or against some principle, there will be some bad feeling at the end of the day. What I'm trying to say is we have to perform activities. We cannot restrict by not doing anything in both ways. I'm trying to put both together. Even here, he has to conduct, take up family life, to do a good action, and also obeying the orders of his spiritual master. This is the first one. And the second one, the second part. The first part is about whether we are forced to do activities or we will be punished or doing some bad activities. In both ways, it worked hand in hand. I don't know if I've been able to explain it clearly.
That is essentially the summation of the instructions of Brahma. That so he's building the case right now, and the point that he will make is the point that you're making, that you have to perform activities to please the Lord. So better to perform the activities in a way that pleases the Lord and also advances you in bhakti. Now, a devotee's intelligence comes in aligning these two things. Right? So there are some devotees that may enjoy kirtan. So that's an activity that is according to their swabhav. That's an activity that pleases Guru and Krishna. And it's an activity that gives them happiness also, right? So everything gets aligned to it. But if a person who has that propensity, then based on some evaluation, says, no, I need to do this also. I see this other person is going on book distributing every day. I need to go book distribution. And that activity might make the person miserable. So where is the devotee in a stronger place to practice bhakti? Yeah, he likes kirtan, and he does kirtan. It's a bona fide way. It's something that helps him make advancement and makes him happy also. So this is where the guidance and the shelter of the Guru is in. That the Guru understands the swabhav of the devotee, of the disciple, and then engages according to it also. But also there is a certain amount of keeping the devotee in the stretch zone. Right. So if a person says, I like kirtan, and the person says, the Guru says, you will do only kirtan, no need to chant, no need to study the scriptures. So maybe initially pleasing, but then the person might lose. By studying the scriptures, one gets conviction. By chanting, one gets the connection. So initially it may be pleasing, but it may eventually weaken the person's bhakti. And so that's where the expert guidance of the Guru comes. That yeah, you should do kirtan, but at least do your 16 rounds and try and like there's some spiritual masters who have it almost like an initiation vow. That I know Mukund Maharaj has this instruction to all his disciples: they should read at least 30 pages of Prabhupada's books every day. And other gurus have different instructions. Do like Rampad Maharaj, he's like do Bhakti Shastri at least before you get second initiation. So they are trying to balance. They're trying to create some environment in which there is the nourishment of the disciple according to the propensity, and then there is also the stretch zone in which the disciple is doing what is needed for the long run. And there is an excellent analogy that will come later on. We may not be able to do it this week, but there's an excellent analogy that Brahma comes up to explain this apparent dichotomy, that you have to keep the disciple happy. Right? You can't ask someone who is like a Guru Maharaj my Guru Maharaj comes to me and then says that, from tomorrow onwards, do 4 hours of kirtan. So it's very difficult for me to do 5 minutes of kirtan. So 4 hours of kirtan is going to be difficult for me. If he comes to you to do 4 hours of kirtan, you'll say, no problem. I can do, I can do more. So, but he understands the difference in the nature of the disciple. But to both of us, he will give same basic instructions. Like you chant 16 rounds, follow the regulative principles. That is not going to compromise. Saying that, okay, for you 3 rounds, for you 2 rounds, nothing like that. So Lord Brahma, with a beautiful analogy, and I don't want to give it because it's such a nice analogy, 2 analogies, he will explain how the authorities engage the devotees in reconciling these 2 apparently contradictory aspects of instructions. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for bringing it up, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I think guidance is key, as you're saying here. Like 2 authorities, one Brahmaji, and then Narad Muni. And one is like renounce everything. One is do you go and management of the world to end. Guidance is important. Thank you, Prabhu.
And actually, when I was reading this, then I was thinking that in the context of ISKCON, this is actually very relevant. I mean, there's actually a formal characterization of this called the dual path of authority, because when devotees go to the temple, they're subject to two authorities. One is the authority at the temple, and the second is the Guru Maharaj. In 99% of the cases, they are separate. Very rarely is the Guru also the authority at the temple. So then they have this conflict that the person who's coming is initiated, the temple management or the temple president is saying, can you do this? Can you do that? VBC is saying, can you do that? The spiritual master is saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. And the person is kind of, most of the people are not at the level of Prevarta. So they make different decisions, right? Some of them basically reject the temple completely and say, I'll just do what my Guru Maharaj does. Some of them do the opposite, right? They simply do what the temple does, and some of them try to balance it. So this is, as we speak, this is a dominant issue that is going on. That how to reconcile the lines of authority between management and spirituality. Even the temple president is also devotee, but the focus of the temple president, temple management is more to manage the day-to-day affairs, schedule deity worship, cooking of prasadam, cleaning of temple, and doing harinam. So they have different, and the spiritual master may have different. That I want you to work on this, or edit a book for me, or do work on my tape ministry. And the disciple has, or the devotee has, fixed number of hours, right? So this creates all this tension. It was a lot more, I would say, maybe 10 years ago. It was a lot more at the time, but I think it was recognized, and then now there's a lot more awareness of the issue. Maybe it's not fully solved. I mean, definitely it's not fully solved, but there's a lot more awareness of this issue. So I was actually thinking of that Payworth was the original one. So temple president Brahma came and asked him to do something, and Narad Muni came and asked him to do something, and he's sitting there figuring out what needs to be done.
Oh, this is a different topic, but I just want to bring it because you talk about it. In the days that there was zonal guru, I don't know if you remember these days, there was zonal guru, like a guru for this zone and guru for that zone. You cannot take like initiation with somebody who you have never seen, or you will see him only once a year or once every 3 years. And it had to be guru that traveling in that zone. And this zone guru, he worked with the temple president. Then everything is aligned. To solve this issue, we have to go back to the old days. This is what Srila Prabhupada wanted actually at that time. And unfortunately now everybody has opportunity to fly everywhere. And it affects the temple in many ways. Not only in terms of service, but also in terms of resources. It can be financial resources as well, because some devotees, they cannot give donation all over the world, they can give to what they have. Then it deprives some temple of some help in terms of man hours and in terms of donation as well, and in terms of specific instruction. And if we go back to this time of the zonal guru, many of these issues will be solved. And I just wanted to point that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. So moving on to verse 13. Bhavayana chakar kartum shokaya mohaya sada bhayaya sukhaya dukhaya chadhe yogam avyaktadishtam janantagadate.
My dear Prevrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future, dangers, and happiness or distress.
So previous verse, Lord Brahma said that everybody is following the will of the Lord, right? And I had asked the question, how are people who are not apparently following the will of the Lord are actually following as well? And you all give the right answer. This is Brahma answering that question, right? So he's giving an example of how everyone is following the will of the Lord, either explicitly or implicitly. So Lord Brahma says that, so when we see all these situations given by Brahma, different types of body, birth, death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear, happiness, distress. What are these? These are essentially everything that is happening by the law of karma. So Brahma is talking about those who don't directly surrender to the will of the Lord. They are forced to indirectly suffer to his will. Now, one may say that how can you say that this is the will of the Lord? Because my karma is in my hand. And based on my karma, I get a certain kind of birth. I can live for a long time. I can have happiness. So wouldn't it be more accurate to say that all this that you are saying is not the will of the Lord, but the will of the Jiva? Because he acts in a certain way, he gets a certain type of birth. So Brahma is making this point that that one is, so the fallacy in that argument is that you're assuming the will of the Lord to be de facto. So the person is saying that based on my activity, I will get good and bad results. But then who has established that rule that based on your activity, you will get good and bad results? Krishna has established that rule. So yes, there is some level of free will, but that free will lets you exercise your adherence to the will of the Lord one way or the other. That is what the free will is. The jiva does not have the free will to say that now I am not bound by the law of karma. The jiva does not have the free will to say that even though my activities are impious, but I will go to the heavenly planets. Right? If truly that it was the result of the free will, then that's what they would say, but they're not able to say. So even though all these are maybe happening because of the activities of the jiva, but the reason they're happening this way is because of the will of the Lord. So also interesting to see that so one thing that you will note over here, or maybe let me present it as a question, that this conversation between Brahma and Priyavat, less of a conversation, it's more of instruction, but it parallels another conversation of one who is in a similar situation as Priyavrata. Another famous conversation. Which conversation is that?
Arjuna and Krishna.
Is that between Krishna and Arjuna?
Very good. So if you step back and look at the situation, Priyavrata, he does not want to do his prescribed duties, but he wants to renounce. Krishna, when Arjuna goes to Krishna, same scenario. He does not want to do his prescribed duty, which is fighting, but wants to renounce there. So we see that the instructions that Brahma is giving Priyavrata are very similar to the instruction given by Krishna to Arjun, where Krishna tells Arjun that you're forced to do your activities because it's your nature to do activities. Karma by nature is purifying. Even those who are advanced perform karma because it purifies them also. Become my instrument. Be, be a act according to my desire. So similar route, similar scenario, similar route, but much condensed. 700 verses over there, and here it's I think 14 verses only. But you will see the same logic that is coming over here. So here Brahma, he is making this point that everything is happening by the will of the Lord. Now in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes this point. This is in the 5th chapter. Nadate kaschit papam na chaiva sukritam vidu agyane avritam jnanam tena muyanti jantava. That the Lord does not assume the sinful or pious activities. And the embodied beings, because they're bewildered by ignorance, they think like that. So there, at this juncture in the Gita, Krishna is saying that the Lord is not responsible for the activities of the jiva. But then later on, Krishna goes ahead and makes this point. Yes, the Lord is the ultimate, is ultimately sanctioning everything. Right? So this dual perspective is balanced. So Krishna earlier tells that the Lord is not responsible because he wants the jiva to take responsibility. Otherwise, the jiva will do sinful activities and say that it is Krishna's desire, right? So no, it's your desire. But then in the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada makes this point that ultimately everything is there by the desire of the Lord. Right? He quotes from 15:15, Sarvasya Chaham Nidhi Sanimishtu, that the Lord is the super soul. But where the difference is coming is how is the Lord is present, how is the jiva relating to the Lord? So for those who are tuned to the Lord, Prabhupada quotes 10:10, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mam Upyanti. For them, he is actively giving instructions. Right? And for those who follow the instructions of the Lord, Prabhupada says, Apama Vidha. The Lord appears as, so Apama Vidha is prophylactic. Prophylactic means that prophylactic is like getting what we call immunization. That once you get the immunization, then you don't get infected by the disease. So prophylactic means that when you are, well, this is Ishupanishad Mantra 8, that once you are in contact with God or Krishna, then you are protected from sinful reactions or sinful activities. So that is one aspect of the Lord. For those who are not tuned, Krishna says that in chapter 9, verse 9, he says that I am seated in their heart as if neutral, and I am simply the observer, the overseer, and the permitter. That's it. Right. So if the jiva is acting independently of the Lord acts as a super soul. If the jiva is acting accordance to the Lord acts as Bhagavan. The jiva becomes bhakta over there. So these kinds of instructions, they help to develop two things in the jiva. One is they develop accountability for their own action. And secondly, they understand the importance of following the instructions of the Lord. So they are contrary situations. But this contradiction comes because of free will. If the jiva did not have any free will, then there would not be any opportunity for the jiva to act against the instruction of the Lord. It is because of the free will this whole material universe comes into existence, the law of karma comes into existence, and this whole dynamics of the universe is coming because of the free will. And because of the free will of the jiva, there is the need for the jiva to develop this mentality that yes, I have free will to do activities, but I am accountable for what happens as a result of them. At this point, Brahma, he's speaking to Priyavrat Maharaj as one who has already accepted the path of bhakti. So the slight difference between Gita and instructions in Gita and here is that Krishna was elevating Arjun from the situation of Phalgu Vairagya or not understanding karma to the state of bhakti. Brahma is actually bringing Priyavrata down from the state of bhakti to Yukta Vairagya. Right? So there's a slight difference, but they meet at the same point. Ultimately, they both meet at the same point that you do your activities, but for the pleasure of the, or you do your prescribed activities, but for the pleasure of the Lord. Right? That's the common meeting point. Okay, I didn't realize I spoke. So I'll stop over here and see if there is any concluding thoughts or discussion. Okay, if not, then we will end over here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anant Koti Vaishnavind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Swami ki jai. Hai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.